Hi and welcome to this video which will be looking at the first 5 multiple choice questions for the 2016 Econ 1 paper. So let's start off with the first question. The first question says, a free good is, and the definition for a free good is one that has zero opportunity cost in its supply. So the answer for this question is B. The other options for this question are clearly wrong. So we just need to remember the definition for a free good, which is a good that has zero opportunity cost in its supply. So let's now have a look at the next question. Question 2 asks, the equilibrium market price can be defined as the price at which. So we're looking for the equilibrium, and the equilibrium is found when supply crosses demand. Therefore, the answer to this question is A, and this is where the market for the product clears. When we say that the market for the product clears, it means that supply for that product is exactly the same as demand for that product, and that will be where supply intercepts demand. So now let's have a look at question 3. Question 3 has a diagram, and this diagram illustrates the industry supply curve for mobile phones. So if we ignore the question for the time being and just have a look at the supply curve, we can see that it looks like a normal supply curve. A normal supply curve has a positive gradient, which means that it is upward sloping. This means that as the price of mobile phones increases, the quantity of mobile phones supplied also increases. There are two reasons why this occurs. One reason is that higher prices provide a profit incentive for firms to expand their production. Also, higher prices send a signal to firms operating in other industries that there may be a greater amount of profit in the industry that we're talking about, and this industry is mobile phones. The greater profit provides an incentive for firms that are currently operating in other industries to switch and enter into mobile phones, thus causing the quantity supplied of mobile phones to increase. So if there was to be a price increase, the first effect that I've mentioned would be existing firms would increase their production. And the second effect is where new firms enter the mobile phone industry. So now let's have a look at the question. The question states, all other things being equal, the upward slope of the supply curve is due to, and then we have our 4 options. And we can see from these options the correct answer is B. And this says that higher prices provide a profit incentive for firms to expand production. Now we're going to have a look at question 4. The free market equilibrium price for a merit good is £50 per unit. At present, the government does not intervene in the market for this good. The government is most likely to correct the market failure associated with this merit good if it, and then we've got the 4 options. We first need to have a look at what a merit good is. A merit good will be underconsumed relative to the socially optimal level. The reason why it will be underconsumed is because there is a positive externality in the production or the consumption of this good. And as individuals only take into account the private cost and the private benefit rather than the social cost and the social benefit, they will consume less than is socially optimum. Therefore, the government may want to intervene in the market in order to increase the consumption of this good. So we're going to go through each of the 4 options and see whether they increase the consumption of that good. So the first option is A, and that is to impose a maximum price above £50 per unit. A maximum price means that the price cannot go above that price. So let's suppose that the maximum price was 55, which is above 50. At the moment, the free market equilibrium price is £50 per unit, and that is less than the maximum price. Therefore, if the government imposed the maximum price of above 50, let's say our £55, then it would have no effect on the free market equilibrium. And as the price hasn't changed, there will be no effect on the amount consumed. Thus, A is wrong. B is to set a minimum price of £50 per unit. And a minimum price means that the price must be £50 or above. The free market equilibrium price is £50 per unit. So if the government was to set a minimum price of £50 per unit, it would have no effect. And as the price doesn't change, the quantity consumed will not change. Therefore, B is also wrong. Option C is to tax the free market price. If we place a tax on this good and we placed it on the suppliers of this good, this would cause the supply curve to shift inwards. This is because firms would be less willing to supply the goods to the market for a given price because of the tax. The supply curve will shift inwards by the amount of the tax. The tax would result in a new equilibrium where the price is higher and there is a lower quantity consumed. And this is the opposite effect of what the government wants to do to correct this market failure. The final option is D, and this is to subsidise the free market price. Let's suppose that this subsidy was given to firms. This would cause the supply curve to shift outwards, and this is because firms are more willing to supply the goods to the market at a given price because they receive the price and the subsidy. The supply curve will shift down or outwards by the full amount of the subsidy. This would result in a new equilibrium where the price is lower and there is a greater quantity consumed. The market failure for the merit good was that there was underconsumption, and this subsidy has caused consumption to increase. Therefore, consumption has moved towards or reached the socially optimal level. So the correct answer for 4 is D. Now let's have a look at the final question in this section, which is question 5. It says, the 4 diagrams below relate to the provision of medical services at a local hospital. The services are currently provided free. It has been suggested that patients could pay £20 each time they receive treatment at the hospital to reduce pressure on its fixed capacity and to reduce waiting times for treatment. There are 3 key pieces of information that are given in the question. The first one is that the services are currently provided free. The second key piece of information is that there's going to be a £20 charge each time a patient receives treatment. And the final one is that the hospital has a fixed capacity. So let's start by looking at the final one, which is the hospital having fixed capacity. If the hospital has fixed capacity, it means that the supply curve will be perfectly inelastic. A perfectly inelastic supply curve will be vertical, and therefore we can say that option C is wrong. The question states nothing about the fixed capacity of the hospital changing. This means that supply must stay in that perfectly inelastic position, and therefore there will only be one supply curve. That means that option D is also wrong, because there's 2 supply curves here. If the supply curve was to move from S1 to S2, it would mean that the hospital's fixed capacity has fallen. And as this isn't the case, option D is wrong. So now we're left with option A and option B. The first 2 key pieces of information that we found out is that the service was currently free, and now the consumers are going to have to pay £20 per visit. This price increase from £0 to £20 is a movement up the demand curve. This is because there is a change in price and there isn't a change in any factors that would cause a shift in the demand curve. Therefore, the correct answer for this question is A, and option B is wrong because there is a shift in the demand curve. You can find the remaining videos for this past paper on YouTube, or you can find them on the website, which has other videos, content, quizzes and past papers.